Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight interview series. I'm your host, Barrett McDonald, and I'm happily joined today by Ashley MacInnis, co-founder, founder and owner of amPR. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to kick things off a little bit about who you are and what got you started on your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, well, thank you, Barrett, for having me. I'm excited to be joining you, and I can't believe that I'm a little over 18 or right around 18 months, I guess. I can't count today. I'm a little tired, but I started my business last year in the spring, and really kind of kicked off the entrepreneurial journey for me because it was something I always wanted to do. It's always kind of the long-term dream. And I had I have an older child, but my second baby was born in 2022. And while I was on that maternity leave, I was thinking, sometime in the next few years, when we have time, I'd love to start my own business, launch this agency. I had a it was very aspirational views and decided to have another baby. And while I was pregnant with him, I was actually laid off. I was working with a Series A tech company. They ran out of money, which was at the time the worst thing ever. But about 48 hours later, I realized it was the best thing to happen to me because it
Right.
was the kick in the pants I needed to get things going. So within a week, I had all of the paperwork signed, thanks to a good friend who happens to be a lawyer, and did some of the paperwork with me.
Nice.
And I had my first client uh, contract signed by May 1st. So it was like a 2 week turnaround from being an employee to being an entrepreneur. And it was a whirlwind, but I am so glad I did it and can't wait to see what the next 18 months and hopefully 18 years has in store.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. So, relatively new into the journey of being an entrepreneur, what would you say is the biggest misconception you've come across, and what do you do to try to combat that in your life?
Yeah, so I get that one a lot, and it must be so cool to be your own boss. And on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, it is really cool. I am my own boss, but I actually really report to all of my clients.
Right.
So I take a very client centric approach and I work very closely with them. So the benefit for sure is that if there's not good alignment, um, I can leave, I guess, but I think that's the case always. Um, a lot of, I think a lot of people try to create, especially online, like social media is both the bane of my existence and the base of my business in a lot of
Right.
ways. But I think social media has created this misconception that you can be an entrepreneur and you show up for 5 hours a week and that's all the work you do and you can make all of this crazy money. And the reality is I work way harder now probably than I
Mhm.
ever did before, but it's so meaningful because I'm doing it for my reasons.
Right.
So I think the like that I must have so much free time and make so much money without having to put much work in is probably the biggest misconception. So what I try to do to combat that is really be real. I break it down often on my social media. So I'll get on stories and talk about, a complete gong show that might be going on, or, it's been yesterday is a perfect example. I got up at 4 a.m. Atlantic time, hopped on a plane, 5.5 hours of travel to land, get in an Uber, drive, an hour from Detroit into Ann Arbor, and then spent the entire day working with clients. And I'm reversing the process here in a couple of hours. So it's a lot of long days. It's not all what Instagram and LinkedIn posts might make it look to be.
No, and you're not exactly ushering yourself to an airport and getting on a private plane and avoiding all the lines and all of that aspect. So it
No,
makes it
I'm
fun.
red faced and sweaty dragging my things through Newark.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun for sure. So, you talked about time. Like, what do you do to try to balance your personal life and the demands of running a business, especially in its young stage that it is?
Yeah, I mean, I fly by the seat of my pants a lot. Um, I try really hard. Like I mentioned, we have two small kids, and I have a teenager as well who's active. He's in sports, So my non-work time is really valuable to me. And, you can always make more money later, which is what I try to tell myself. I can make more money later. I can't make more time later. But I've been really fortunate to work with clients in a lot of different time zones. Clients in the UK, clients on the West Coast, clients in Eastern time zone, which is, only an hour off. But it does sometimes mean that if I'm starting my day when I'd like to start, which is quite early Atlantic time, some of my clients haven't even gotten out of bed yet.
Right.
It's still not even the crack of dawn for them. It's 4 or 5 a.m. So sometimes it means having a um, very flexible schedule. I try to take a day a week that I cut things off really early, and then I have other days where I don't start until a little bit later, so that I have a little bit of time kind of baked into my regular schedule. But to be honest, I think, managing time is probably one of the hardest challenges for me to overcome because I want to be doing all of it. I want to be in my work. I love what I do, but I also want to be present for my family.
Yeah, it comes
It's
down to
tough.
really being purposeful. And you can only
Absolutely.
be so purposeful when you're under a contract for another company. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
wanted that
exactly.
3 hours ago, but someone just sent it to me now. So how am I going to get this by
Yeah.
the deadline? Which
Yeah.
makes it fun. So when you think about like your subcontractors and their staff and the people that you're going to bring on in the future, when you think about bringing them on, what kind of qualities do you see yourself looking for in them, and how do you see yourself fostering that positive work environment?
Yeah. A big thing for me is organization. So I'm always looking for someone who's going to be able to be very organized and very deadline driven. So in just the nature of public relations, of, news media, of work, I mean, business in general is very deadline based. If whether you're submitting an award submission that has a hard cutoff, or if it's trying to get something in before a publication deadline or a publishing deadline, those deadlines are really, really important to me. And, transparently, I've been burned. Um,
Yeah.
I've had instances where we didn't get something back to the client because the deadline maybe seemed like it was an option.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it made it really hard for me. It made it hard for me to trust someone to come in and do work with me again. So I I really want to make sure when I'm working with someone that they care enough, or they care as much, I guess, about the quality of their work and the delivery of their work as I do. And
Okay.
the good news is that it's not hard, especially locally. I think I've been fortunate that everyone I've worked with, for the most part, has had the same level of pride and excitement for what they do. Um, a lot of communication, making sure that they have everything they need to be successful. If I'm bringing someone in to work on a project, I want to make sure that they are the right person for the project and for that role, especially if it's a more long term um, engagement, and that I'm giving them what they need to be successful, because it's important to me as well to be fostering their business or their career as they're working with me. So I try to do that. I like to have fun. Life, I think life's too short for us to be serious all the time.
Hmm.
So, I try to have a really good rapport with the folks that I'm working with, and with clients as well, coming and shaking things up a little bit and trying to be as transparent and open as I can be about, where things are going. I always rather know if something's, starting to smoke before it's fully erupted into fire. And I
Yeah,
figure, giving people the same transparency is pretty important.
absolutely. Yeah, staying on top of it and having that plan and those
Totally.
timelines is key, I'd say for sure. Um, what do you attribute your growth to?
Oh, wow. Um, I mean, so two parts, I guess. One is I have a really great network of people who have been cheering me on and supporting me, quietly, just giving me words of encouragement and keeping me going. Because I'll
Hmm.
be honest, there have been times when I thought, oh my God, I can't keep doing this. This is bananas. Or, a client has ended a contract decided not to renew, whatever it might be. And I think, oh no, it's a reflection of the value that I'm providing. And then, of course, someone comes along and says, no, it's normal. You're not supposed to keep the client forever and ever and ever. You're supposed to grow on to the next thing. And so, having good mentors and having good supporters has been a big one. I've actually, something I'm really proud of is in 18 months, I've spent $500 on advertising. I did
Nice.
one for fun just to see LinkedIn advertising. Almost everyone I've been able to bring on as a client has come through organically. So they've followed me on social, they've seen my content, we've crossed paths somewhere. So that's been really, really nice. So a big part of the growth has been building and developing relationships. And I think, if I can be so bold, I think the way that I work with my clients and the work that I've provided has spoken for itself. And I've offered a little bit of a different approach and a different experience than clients that I've had have maybe experienced in the past. So
Hmm.
that has been, a piece of feedback I've gotten was I really loved how involved you've been, or one of the best compliments I ever got was we use the work that you provided every day. And
That's
that
awesome.
that was really great to hear. So, they very kindly refer me on to the next people and introduce me. So I think for the most part, it really comes down to building a network. And in Atlantic Canada in particular, we're so lucky because the business community wants to see the business community succeed. And so there's really so much excitement for one another and willingness to offer advice or make an introduction or even, offer you work. So really comes down to the community, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that, the positives that came out of COVID has been the growth of Atlantic Canada as far as a population and ideas. And I think that the world has gotten a little bit smaller. So we're able
It
to work
has.
remotely on some pretty international projects and
Yeah.
have the quality of life that Atlantic Canadians want,
Yeah,
which is pretty
absolutely.
fantastic. We live in Nova Scotia. We're never, what, 40, more than 40 kilometers from the ocean? One
Which
of
is
them,
perfect.
one side's cold, one side's warm, but that's a geography issue for sure,
Yeah, yeah.
which makes it fun. So when you think, it's only been 18 months. So to look back
Yeah.
and say what I do differently the next time around is maybe a little premature, but what would you do if you were to start all over again from square one?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would have started sooner, I
Okay.
think. Hindsight's 2020. So we can look back and realize, maybe sooner would have been better. I try not to look at things that way,
Hmm.
I think I wish I had believed in myself more early on and been a bit more confident.
Okay.
And I undersold myself a lot in the early months. Um, I wanted to, I wanted clients so badly that I was almost giving away work for free, um,
Hmm.
which was okay. I've gotten past that now. But it made it tough because I sort of devalued myself for a while in the early months for probably, I would say, the first 6 to 12 months. And by giving in to prices that were, a lot lower than what I knew the value I was providing was, it made it really hard to negotiate prices further.
Absolutely.
Um, and I was disorganized as heck in the really early days because I was pregnant for one thing. So I was a complete scatterbrain and just trying to put things in motion. So I didn't have a lot of processes in place. And when Elliot, my youngest, was born in October of last year, I had a kind of a come to Jesus moment, if you will, where I was like, I need processes. So I hired a bookkeeper and I invested in tools and technology that could help streamline some of the work for me. Better note taking
Fantastic.
apps, using note taking apps, throwing out my notebooks where I was just kind of like writing in the corners because I'd used up all of the paper. Like I just really had to sit down and say, this is going to be the process. And then blocking time was another big one that I wish I had done sooner. So having blocks of time that I'm spending working on my business
Yeah.
as well and developing my skills so that I can be a better version of me later on. And 18 months ago, I was just like, gotta get to work, gotta get to work, gotta get to work. I'll work 18 hours a day if I have to. And now I really try to take a step back and be looking not only at the work that I'm doing for clients, but what work am I doing for myself so that in another 18 months, I'm still moving forward and that I haven't stopped growing.
That's fantastic perspective that you've had. Probably an epiphany on a plane once that you do it a little bit as well.
Woke up in the
Uh,
morning.
yeah, exactly. Just shoot up like all of us do and start writing notes on that full notebook. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. So, in wrapping things up, Ashley, before we sign off, for someone who might be watching in a similar situation to where you were 18, 19 months ago, what piece of advice do you have for them about getting started on their journey?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I'll flip something on its head. And I had people tell me how brave they thought I was to launch my own business. And I I thought, that's an interesting perspective. And at the time, I think I felt very brave. I was like, look at me, going out on my own and patting myself on the back for, putting my big girl pants on. But, perhaps, counterintuitively, really, I have a better safety net as a service provider. As I call myself a one woman agency often because I don't just have one job. I have
Right.
several clients, and so it's a bit of insurance, really, if you will. Uh, so I think if I had to give someone advice, it would be to be brave or don't be brave, and
Yeah.
create your net. But getting involved with the community is huge. If you're thinking about starting a business, the business owners, the entrepreneurs, and I'll pick on Halifax because it's where I'm based. They will bend over backwards to connect with you and share their stories. And Jeff White, the Kula Partners, has often said, like, I'll tell you something so that you don't have to learn the hard way like I did, sort of thing. And he's been a tremendous mentor for me, and an even better friend, honestly, over the last number of years. So, find your little community, build your little community.
Mhm.
I'm thrilled to sit on the board for Digital Nova Scotia as one of the directors. And, Digital Nova Scotia is a great resource. You don't have to become a member. You can just go on the website and find oodles of resources. There's always get togethers and networking opportunities. Leading Ladies is a great one for women if you feel a little bit nervous going out to a networking event. If it's not your forte, it's a great place to start. They're a lot of fun. Um, and, leverage technology, really. I mean, you and I connected, for example, on LinkedIn, and I've made
Absolutely.
so many great connections on LinkedIn or whatever platform it is where you feel comfortable. If it's Twitter, X, if it's Instagram, reach out,
Mhm.
connect with people, but have fun. You only
Absolutely.
live once. Be brave or be a coward like me.
Yeah, and who knows who you're going to bump into standing in line to get a coffee in the morning? Like you
It's true,
never
yeah.
know.
Yes, yeah.
And
I've
just strike up those conversations.
yeah, or I mean it's the most Atlantic Canadian thing ever, but the one of the colleagues who I'm traveling with right now, she used to work with my husband. She and I now work with this client together in two different capacities. She's actually an employee, and
No way.
I'm the contractor. But as we were chatting about, you know, people that we've worked with over the years, we're just developing this huge list of people that we had in common. And then realizing all of these great opportunities we have to be connecting some people with others. So it really does happen very organically when you start chatting with the people around you and, striking up conversation with the person in the grocery store. And
Absolutely.
wear your brand would be my other. I wish I had gone full tilt. I made hats uh, and stickers recently, but I wish I'd done them a little bit sooner because people always ask, "Oh, what is that?" And then I have a chance to tell
Okay.
someone, and you really never know when you might be chatting with someone who could be a client or a referral down the line.
Absolutely. That is a fantastic piece of advice to end on. I appreciate that one for sure, Ashley. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time. I know that
Well, thank you.
things went a little sideways and you had to carve out some time today, so I appreciate that. And
That's
for
all
those of
right.
you watching, for those of you watching at home, I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.